name is Leah Peterson.
My name is Julian Kepsky.
I've been living on James Island in Charleston, South Carolina for 7 years.
On our property, we have 6 chickens and 3 beehives.
I ended up getting into beekeeping accidentally, kind of. I was gardening and I had grown a bunch of sunflowers and was looking forward to eating the sunflower seeds.
And when we were about to eat them, we realized that there were no seeds in the sunflowers.
They hadn't been pollinated. And so I became really concerned about the state of our pollinators on this island, and I know it's kind of globally a concern at this point. So I kind of panicked and went out and bought a box of bees, and I've been a beekeeper since then. I've also been incorporating more eco-friendly gardening into my yard just to encourage native pollinators, since honeybees are actually originally from Europe. So I've been growing a lot of flowers and mowing less frequently, and I use 0 chemicals on my lawn. So I'm just trying to help other animals as well. Taking care of the hives is kind of a personal preference on beekeepers. Sometimes beekeepers are out there every single week, but these bees are meant to survive. They're trying their best to make things go, and so with neglect, they can also do it. I would say ideally every 2 weeks would be a great time to get out there during the active season, just to make sure that you're monitoring for pests. We have some passive monitoring systems, so we have oil trays under each of our beehives so that we can see what they're chasing out of the hive. It's like a moat around a castle, basically, what they chase out and what ends up drowning in that oil. With a hive inspection, first of all, we put on our gear and make sure there's absolutely no way a bee can get into our bare skin. Then we come out with a smoker, and we usually pack the smoker with wood chips or pine needles or something like that, and light it up and just kind of waft a little bit of smoke on the bees so that they know we're coming. And there's theories that the smoke calms them down, it makes them get ready for a possible problem, so they actually retreat into the hive and kind of gorge themselves on honey to make sure they have their supplies. But it kind of pacifies them so that when we actually take the lid off the hive, they're going to be pretty calm. And when we take the lid off the hive, we add a little bit more smoke on top so the bees upstairs can know that we're coming. And then we kind of go frame by frame. There's 6 or 8 frames across the hive. We go frame by frame and just lift them up carefully, look at them, see if there's babies being made, see if we can figure out where the queen is. If there's drones being made, those are the male bees. That's a sign that maybe they're going to try to split their colony and go out and establish a new colony and have more queens and more bees coming out to mate with that queen. If we see that nothing is out of order there, we just kind of close it up and put the top back on. We also will check the honey supply. So if the honey is really full and it's early in the season, we might pull some honey after that inspection. If we do observe that there's any pest problems, then we'll have to figure out what to do about that. Varroa mites are one of the main problems globally for honeybees right now, and they're kind of a mite that latches onto the backs or various parts of the body of the bees, and in and of themselves they're just a nuisance, but they also carry a virus called deformed wing virus. It's an illness that causes the new bees to come out with just little mangled little wings, and it's super sad because they just kind of crawl around until they die. So it's really tragic, and it's been suspected that that's one of the reasons that there's been this collapsing hive problem. So the way that we treat for the Varroa mites, well, I guess the primary one is just to keep an eye on if it's becoming a problem, because it's not if you have it, it's kind of when and in what volume you have it. So we monitor to see if we have a high volume or if it's starting to crawl up, and we will treat with a food grade treatment that's based in hops, like actually what beer is made out of. And so it's a hops treatment that the Varroa mite don't react well to. And so we'll put that in usually 2, maybe 3 times in the winter ideally, to make sure that they're healthy coming into the spring season.
We really love our beehives. We use the Flow Hive, which is a system that was invented by father and son surfers in Australia. And the way the system works, it has some pre-built honeycombs on the upper box in the hive, and the bees will complete the honeycombs and then fill them up with honey. When it comes time to harvest, all we have to do is put a long key in the top of the frame, turn it, and what it does is it cracks the honeycomb. So when you look at a honeycomb, it's usually shaped like this. When we put the key and open it, we just crack it this way. the honey flows to the bottom and then end up sliding down to a little opening on the front of the frame. At this point, we just put a little spigot on it and we can slide a jar and we'll fill it up with honey. So the great thing with that system is it's not traumatic to the honeybees. They don't even notice that we are actually harvesting honey. And it's great because all they have to do after this is they will break down the little openings for the honeycombs and refill it up with honey once we're done after the harvest. This honey flow system is really a great thing for harvesting honey. We don't even need to wear a suit when we're harvesting the honey.
The bottom of our hive is completely natural. We just put in square frames and the bees build out their own honeycombs down there. So that's totally natural, where the babies are made, where the queen lives, and then the top part is merely honey storage. And so I really love that we can literally not bother the bees at all. They barely realize that there's been this little earthquake and the honey is flowing away from their frame. We have 3 hives now, and so that's probably a little more than anybody needs, but we sell our honey, so that's great. And it's not really profit making, but it's kind of paying for the equipment at this point. But it's really awesome having honey in the house. It tastes wonderful. It's so much better than the stuff you buy in the store, which is not necessarily real honey. There's only one place in the world where they actually verify that honey is honey, so a lot of the big mass-produced honey is actually made out of rice syrup or corn syrup or what have you. It's just repackaged. So having honey that's actually made from the flowers on James Island, I think is really special because it tastes different over the course of the year depending on what the bees have been bringing in. It has different colors, different thicknesses, so it's just really interesting. It becomes more of a gourmet item again. And then it's been really fun to use it in cooking too. If you're a beekeeper, you've been stung by a bee, unfortunately.
One of them got into my t-shirt, to my armpit, so I just started running in the yard and took my t-shirt off.
Apparently, bee stings are also therapeutic, so some people get bee stings intentionally to help treat certain conditions, and so every time I get stung, I just figure, that doesn't feel great, but probably it's good for me. We'll see.
We're really happy to have those bees in our backyard.
Bees are really amazing creatures. They are an amazing lesson in politics and in colonization and on keeping species alive, and just huge amounts of insight into human life that you can get from bees. There's the politics of which queen they want to have. There's battles to the death between the queen contenders when they decide to re-queen themselves, or if something happens to a prior queen. Yeah, there's just constantly fascinating things going on there. There's a ton of predators against them too, so just watching the spiders that are trying to eat them and the dragonflies that are trying to eat them, and then being aware of the human impact too of the mosquito sprayers come around, and so the water in the area is contaminated for a day or so. And so just seeing all the things that these little bees are up against, and then realizing how crucial they are to the food supply. I think I've heard that if bees went extinct, humans would go extinct in 3 years or something like that, just because they're so important for pollinating so many foods. There are so many environmental problems in the world right now, but a really easy way to help fight them is to just stop using chemicals in your lawn. Any weed is just a plant that's growing where you don't want it, but if it's growing here naturally, there's probably some little animal that's looking forward to eating something off of it. So I would just say everybody can help out by just being a little more lazy in their garden and just let nature do its thing.